Hello there and welcome to Ask Your Academic. Today we will be covering our MSc Bioinformatics, MRes Biomedical Sciences and MSc Biomedical Sciences. We're joined by our programme leads, Dr. Mark Bailey and Dr. Elaine Huston, as well as Alison Valentine from our PGT administration team. Thanks very much for everyone that submitted their questions. We've got quite a few to get through. If during the session you have any further questions, we've got the chat box functionality there that you can pop them in there. We'll keep an eye on that. We'll also use that to post any useful links and contact details. If after the session you have any further questions, on our programme web pages there's the administration email address. If you send them to there, they'll direct your inquiry that way. The session is being recorded, so after today's session we will send that out to you to allow you just to watch it back if you've missed anything, or if you'd just like to rewatch anything that you may have missed. So it's quite a short session, so I think we'll just get stuck into our questions if that's okay. So our first question we've got is for yourself, Mark, but Elaine, you might want to pick up afterwards. Will there be a mix of online and offline courses, or is it purely offline for the MSc Bioinformatics?
Thank you, Naomi, and thank you for the question. So what we intend is that things are as back to normal as possible this coming year. That means that there is an expectation that all students are in Glasgow throughout the entire course of the programme for the whole year. As much as possible is going to be face-to-face teaching. There are a few teachers who actually prefer to do it remotely, usually using Zoom for particular academic reasons. But those are quite few and far between, and there's a good reason for those. So it's a kind of, in some courses have a slightly blended delivery style. But generally speaking, almost everything you do on MSc Bioinformatics will be in face-to-face classes. Okay.
I can pick up on that as well for the biomedical sciences programs, much the same as Mark's just outlined. We would expect most of our teaching to be on campus this year. We expect all students to be in Glasgow for the full academic year. As always in our courses, there's a lot of student-directed learning as well, where you'll be learning off campus as well, so that all the learning doesn't happen on campus anyway. That's never been the case, but most of our teaching will take place on campus. What has happened over the last 2 years is we've picked up on some really good techniques in terms of things like flipped sessions, where you might get a recorded lecture and then come in for a seminar or tutorial where you discuss the content of that lecture, and that's actually better for student learning. So we will use some of the techniques that have been kind of developed over the last 2 years, but you will be on campus for a good proportion of your courses.
Thank you. So in terms of job prospects, what are they like for non-accredited courses such as the MSc Biomedical Sciences?
Okay, well, the first thing I would say is we are accredited. We're accredited by the Royal Society of Biology. We are not accredited by the Institute for Biomedical Sciences, which I think is what is probably meant by that question. Apologies if I haven't got that right. So really the aims of our course are to introduce students to a wide range of modern molecular biology techniques which are required to pursue a research career. It's a very academic course. It's not a vocational course, which a lot of the accredited Institute of Biomedical Sciences courses are. So people would be expecting to go straight into the NHS from them. We aren't a course which offers that accreditation. What we do is we provide students with kind of knowledge and skills and confidence in all sorts of molecular biology techniques. And this will aid students in a wide range and we also really concentrate on communication of science as well, and how students communicate that science in terms of presentations, posters, chatting to other academics, things like this. So our students go into a wide range of different types of careers. I'm going to cover both the MSc and MRes here because we don't have separate data for the two programs. We've got data over the last 3 years for about a third of our students who have graduated from these programs. And we know that about 20 to 50% of our students go on to do PhDs. Anecdotally, this tends to be higher in the MRes student cohort than the MSc student cohort, but that varies year to year. About 10 to 20% go into posts which are still within academia, but things like research scientists or research assistants or technicians. And about really the largest part of our cohorts go into careers within the life sciences industries. So that can be things like, again, scientists, technical supervisor positions, project management, product management, environmental monitoring, sales, technical training, business development, things like this. So there's quite a wide range of kind of careers people go into. Some students do go into clinical positions. So there are some students that have managed to go into medical laboratory scientist positions. They tend to be either in private hospitals, or they tend to apply for that after ongoing careers. So we do have quite a few students that have gone into clinical science within the NHS, but that's tended to be after a PhD, really, if we look back on our data. And some of our students go on to teach as well. So that's kind of a snapshot of what the data that we have collected of our students. So I hope that answers the question.
That's great, thank you. I'm just watching the chat box there. We've got a question there for yourself, Mark. I'll just read it out just because otherwise it won't record in the webinar, if that's okay. Are there any computer requirements for the bioinformatics course? And if so, will the school provide a PC?
So all computing resources that are needed for the MSc Bioinformatics program are provided by us. Okay, so you can arrive here without a computer and still do the program. However, most of our students do bring their own PC. It probably will be more handy for you if you have a PC. It's not obligatory, but it may help you if you do have one. There's no particular spec for the hardware. Just don't get the bottom of the range. A mid-range PC should do the job perfectly adequately. Just get sufficient storage and sufficient RAM and a decent processor. Those are the main things. But there's no specific core spec that we need for that. Okay, hope that's answered your question all right.
Thank you. Just back to job opportunities for yourself, Mark. What are the job opportunities and placements like after completing the MSc Bioinformatics program? Okay,
thanks, Naomi. So I'll follow on from kind of what Elaine was saying, but just quickly, in case the person who asked the question is on the call, could you clarify in the chat what you mean by placement, please? There are several different meanings of the word placement. So I'll come back to that one in a bit once I see what you mean by that, if possible. But in terms of job opportunities, again, just same as for the MRes and MSc Biomedical Sciences, quite a high proportion of our students in bioinformatics go on to do a PhD. It's kind of becoming, it's not obligatory, but it's very, very helpful to know some bioinformatics before you do a lot of different biomedical type or life sciences PhD projects just now. A lot of them use big data and are semi-wet. So it's always, it is definitely seen as being helpful. However, quite a few of our students don't intend to go down the PhD route. So as Elaine was saying, you can become a bioinformatician as a core part of a unit in academia or industry, or in a government research institute or whatever, or you can be attached to a particular research group if you want to stay in science and stay in research as a research assistant or a kind of dry technician, if you like. But many of our graduates have actually got jobs outside academia. They're not part of a research group, so they're working in small spin-out companies, for example, that specialize in data analysis in biology, or they're using their bioinformatics skills in another way in a spin-out company, or in big pharma companies, or it's still in science but outside the life sciences as well. And quite a few of our graduates go on to use their computing skills in other areas entirely, not staying in science. We sometimes get requests from people from companies such as betting companies saying, your guys know how to do big data. We've got big data. We need people to come and analyze it. So basically it opens up a huge range of opportunities. Anything involving serious computing and big data analysis, the world's your oyster.
Great, thank you. Back to yourself, Mark. Is there a detailed syllabus description for the MSc Biomedical Sciences, and are there any topics related to medical biochemistry?
I think that might be me. Okay, so what we can do is arrange with Naomi maybe, or the administrators, to send out 21, 22 PIDs, program information documents, to students that are interested in looking a little bit more deeply at the kind of structure of the course and the content of the course. What I would say is, in both the MRes and the MSc programs, our degree is quite a wide degree. So you will have the opportunity to actually direct your degree in your own areas of interest. So for instance, in the MSc students, so in semester, maybe just overview the kind of structure of the course. So in semester 1, we have 3 core modules, which all of our students do, both MRes and MScs. These are kind of your basic skills. So we introduce molecular biology techniques in this. In one of the courses. In the other, you will look really deeply into the molecular genetics of disease, and in the other you'll do some presentation skills and look at communication of science. So they're kind of our core modules. The MSc students then go into semester 2 with a whole range of options to select from, and these are from across lots of different kind of research areas. So there's some in neuroscience, some in kind of molecular biology, some in cancer sciences, some in infection biology, some in health and well-being. There's lots of different options that students can choose from. So it's very hard to give out syllabuses for all of these things. In terms of the MRes students, there you go on to do your 2 projects, either 2 3-month projects or 1 6-month projects. And again, these projects come in from right across the College of Medical, Veterinary and Life Sciences. So there's a huge range of different research areas that you can, and techniques that you can decide to follow with that. And so we don't have something very specific to send out to students. In terms of medical biochemistry, then yes, we look at kind of how cells communicate, how things go wrong in health and disease. In some of the modules, you can take that further in different areas in the option courses as well. So there's an element of medical biochemistry, tends to be very molecular and genetic based in terms of our core modules. So I hope that answered the question.
What prerequisites can we fulfill on a personal level if we are not from a bioinformatics background?
So I think if I'm interpreting the question correctly, that's about are there any ways to prepare academically for doing the masters? So preparing on a personal level is something that I won't comment on. That's something for you to work out whether this is the right time in your life for you to do a postgrad degree. But from an academic point of view, you don't need to have done any specific prep. We start from the beginning with the computing. And if you have a life sciences background, we are giving you an offer because you have the right kind of background, okay? If you don't have a lot of molecular biology and genetics, or if you come from a computing science background or some other kind of physical sciences or maths background, it will help you if you have done a bit of general reading in undergraduate level textbooks on molecular biology and the more molecular end of genetics. Okay, those are just something you can do. There's no curriculum, just do some reading in those textbooks and that will help you. Similarly, if you've got no computing at all, doing any very, very basic programming courses that you can find on the web or from Coursera or any of the other kind of slightly prearranged setups for doing those sorts of courses. If you want to do any of those, Python is probably best, but any object-oriented programming language is fine. So Java or C++ would also give you some good computing perspective, okay? But you don't need to have done anything before our degree starts.
Great. Elaine, I don't know if there's anything you want to add there.
So much the same as Mark again, I think. So basic molecular biology and genetics background, so basic textbooks. We also do have a app which is freely available on Google Play and on the Apple Store, which accompanies one of our core modules, which is the one that introduces molecular biology techniques. I think, if I can find where I put it, I can put the links for that onto the chat if that would be helpful, and people can have a look at that, and that's really useful. As I say, it's freely available, so may as well make use of it. So I'm just going to stick that in the chat. That's the Google Play one, and this is the Apple Store one. Oops. Okay, hopefully they're useful.
Thank you. Let's see what we've got. Mark, for yourself, I don't know if this has maybe been covered already. Is prior knowledge of computer languages recommended for this course, or will I be able to learn while on the master's course?
So that was sort of covered by what I said a minute ago. We teach you from the ground up. You don't need any prior knowledge, but it may be helpful to you. You'll go faster if you do a little bit of basic work on how programming works and how Python works before you come, but it's not obligatory.
Great, thank you. Could you tell us a wee bit more about the credit system for each module and how the score is evaluated? Mark. That's
mainly a question about bioinformatics, I guess, but it probably applies equally well to the other programs. So the way things are organized, your degree is a program which consists of a set of courses. The unit of education at this university is the course, and you will do a whole series of different courses that make up your program that enable you to get the degree. You need a certain number of credits in the system, and each course provides a certain number of credits, and you have to have done 75% of the assessment to get the credits for any one course. So that's the credit system, okay? It's easy to do that. You just have to hand in or attend all your assessments to get those credits. You don't have to have done any work, but it will help you. How we do the marking, we explain a little bit about how marking and grading work in our induction sessions at the beginning of the program, but basically it ranges from A1 down to H, which is effectively 0. And every step in between, there are 22 points on that scale, and we work out against a series of criteria that are published and available to students what an A looks like, what a B looks like, etc. And that is the basis for our grading. How we apply that differs very much depending on what type of assessment it is and what we're expecting of you in that assessment. And that information we give you a bit more detail about as part of setting you the assessments and in the course information documents that you get for each course. Okay, so I'll probably, we're pressed for time, so I'm hoping that's a decent summary. We can get back to us if you needed a bit more information about that.
Great, thank you. Elaine, for yourself, where or which campus will laboratory work take place?
Okay, so that so projects are dependent on the lab heads actually submitting projects. They're dependent on the research that's available in the university at the time, and they are, as I say, across the whole college. So they can, most of them are on the main campus at Gilmore Hill, but they can also be sometimes at Garscube or at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. So they can be at other sites as well, but that tends to be less common.
Great, thank you. We've got quite a few questions in our chat box, so I'm just going to try and run through a few of them if that's okay. How common are PhD offers for MRes Biomedical Science students?
Okay, so as I said, about 30, I can't remember what I said now, I think it was 30 to 50% of our students from the data that we have actually go on to do PhDs. A high proportion of those are fully funded, but they're across the world. So they're not all in Glasgow, and it can be quite challenging to get PhDs within the institute itself. Obviously, they have a limited number that are offered. You need to apply to them, and it depends on the funding routes that the money comes in from. So you have to look at whether you're applicable to that actual funding route as well. So students do get fully funded PhDs, and as I said, the MRes students, there's a high proportion of those go on to do PhDs, but not all of them. Yes, and it's just about really applying for what's available at the time. So we can't predict what's going to be available when you graduate. It will just depend on the kind of environment at that time. But our students go into PhDs across the UK and further afield.
Great, thank you. How competitive is it for MRes Biomedical Science students to be able to carry their projects in their preferred area, i.e. cancer sciences, and is it preferable to be done 1 or 2 projects?
So it's a good question. So it is a competitive process to get a project because some projects are just more popular than others. So lots of students will want to do that project, and if that's the case, then it becomes more competitive, of course. However, we do have, especially in cancer sciences, we tend to have quite a few projects offered in that area. It really depends on how many come in from different areas that year, and how many students we have that are interested in that particular area. The process for projects is that you will be provided with a booklet of all the projects that have been submitted for the MRes program. You will choose your 5 top choices, and then the program organizers will have a look at that and will manage the process so that you go and see a couple of supervisors within those 5 choices and get to talk to the supervisor, because sometimes you don't get a good feel for what the project is from the booklet. It allows you to find out a little bit more about the project, and also you can find out, the supervisor can find out a little bit about you as well. So there is a kind of, it's not an interview, but a kind of informal process for projects being assigned to different students. When the time that we actually allocate projects for the MRes students, because they start in January, we don't have very many assessment grades back, so we can't really assign them via kind of where you are in the class. So it's very much about how you communicate, and that's something that we try and teach you in semester 1 anyway. So hopefully you'll be good at that, but it is a competitive process. I think all of our students have been happy with their projects this year, though. We had a good selection and more projects than we had students this year, so that was really good.
Great, thank you. I think this might have to be our last question. I'm just aware of the time there. So this one's for yourself, Mark. The job market for a bioinformatician requires experience with workflow management systems such as NetFlow or SnakeMake. And we're wondering, is the MSc Bioinformatics course curriculum covering those?
Okay, thank you. There's another question in the chat, which I will also answer quickly as part of the same answer. Okay, so our program in bioinformatics, it is not a set of training courses. That's not the overall intention of the program. It's an academic program so that you come out of it understanding how bioinformatics works. So what we don't do is say, right, here is a particular tool, and here are the buttons you press to make that tool work. Okay, that's not what we're trying to do in our program. However, as part of the content of several of the courses, you will be exposed to certain environments and certain workflow environments, etc. And in your project, so some of that stuff you will learn as part of the courses you do. And in your project, if you particularly want experience in a particular development environment or workflow environment, you can find a project that will involve doing everything within that environment. So it's quite easy to tailor your program for if you already know roughly what you want out of it. Okay, but it's not a series of training courses in kind of button pressing, here's how you make this tool work. Okay. I just want to come back very quickly to the question about placements that we were asked earlier. So we don't send people out on placements as part of the skill set and job prep program. What you do is within our program on campus effectively, but the projects give you a lot of real world experience in computing, particularly within science, okay, and within biology. So you get a lot of development coming from doing your project. You do it very independently, and that gives you a lot of kind of work related skills, okay? As part of our courses during the year, you will also be developing in various ways that relate to being a good candidate for jobs later on, okay? We don't have whole courses on that stuff. It just comes, it accumulates by doing several of the things you do during our courses. Okay, so I hope that's answered that question to some extent at least.
That's great, thanks Mark. So that's 11 o'clock already. So that is us at the end of our session. We do hope you found that useful. We will be sending this recorded link out in a couple of days, so you can rewatch it back. And if I know there's still questions coming through, and I'm really sorry we don't have time to get to them, but I will send the email addresses in that you can send your questions to, and they will get picked up and we can get a reply back to you. So I'm just popping them in now. And then we've got some useful links for any sort of queries around your application, admissions, visas, etc. So they should hopefully be useful. Yeah, so thanks very much for your time, everybody, and take care of yourselves, and we hope to see you all very, very soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Cool. Bye-bye.